My dear brothers and sisters, sometimes we search far and wide for respect. We wonder why people don't value us, why they overlook us, why they treat us in ways that hurt. But have you ever paused and asked yourself, what am I teaching people about my worth without even speaking? You see, not everything is said with words. Some of the loudest messages are sent through our behavior. The first behavior is how you guard your time. Time is a gift from Allah. When you give it away carelessly, when you allow people to waste it, you are silently telling them it has no value. But when you protect it, when you use it wisely, people begin to realize that you are not someone to be taken lightly. The second is how you speak. If you speak with dignity, calmness, and respect, even when you are upset, you elevate yourself. But when you shout, insult, or lose control, you reduce your own worth before anyone else does. Remember, the believer is not abusive in speech. The third behavior is setting boundaries. Many people think saying no is harsh. No, my dear brother, my dear sister, it is not harsh when done with wisdom. When you constantly say yes to everything, even when it harms you, you teach people that your comfort does not matter. Islam teaches balance. You have rights over yourself. The fourth is consistency. Who are you when no one is watching? And who are you when everyone is watching? If these two people are different, people will eventually notice. But when your character is steady, when your honesty is firm, your value becomes unquestionable. The fifth behavior is how you respond to disrespect. Not every battle needs your voice. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes walking away is not weakness, it is dignity. When you refuse to engage in what lowers you, you rise without saying a word. The sixth is who you choose to keep around you. If you surround yourself with those who belittle you, who drag you down, you are accepting that standard. But when you choose good company, uplifting company, you are declaring your worth without announcing it. And the seventh and most important is your relationship with Allah. When you know your worth in the sight of your Creator, you stop chasing validation from creation. When you stand in prayer at night, when you raise your hands in dua, when your heart is connected to Allah, you carry a dignity that no one can take away. My dear brothers and sisters, people will treat you based on what you tolerate, what you allow, and what you consistently show them. So be careful. Your actions are teaching others every single day. Value yourself not with arrogance, but with humility rooted in faith. With humility rooted in faith. Respect yourself, not with pride, but with dignity rooted in obedience to Allah. And remember, when you know who you are in the sight of Allah, the opinions of people will never shake you. May Allah grant us strength, wisdom, and dignity in all that we do. Amen. Time is one of the most precious gifts given to you by Allah, yet it is also one of the most easily wasted. Every single day, you are given a fixed amount of it, and once it passes, it never returns. There is no way to buy it back, no way to relive it, no way to relieve it, no way to recover even a single second. When you begin to understand this deeply, your entire perspective changes. You stop treating time as something cheap and you start seeing it as something sacred. The way you treat your time quietly teaches people how they should treat you. If you are always available, always ready to drop everything for anyone at any moment, people will slowly begin to assume that your time has no value. Not because they are bad people, but because you have shown them through your actions that it is okay to interrupt you, delay you, or overlook your priorities. And over time, this becomes a pattern. You feel drained, unappreciated, and even disrespected, but it all started with how you handled your own time. Islam teaches us that time is an amana, a trust. It is not yours to waste. It has been given to you for a purpose. Your salah has its time. Your responsibilities have their time. Your rest has its time. When you begin to honor this structure, you are not just becoming organized. You are becoming someone who understands accountability before Allah. And that understanding naturally reflects in how others begin to see you. Guarding your time does not mean you become distant or uncaring. It does not mean you refuse to help people or ignore those in need. Rather, it means you become intentional. You give your time where it truly matters. You help others, but not at the cost of neglecting your obligations. You listen, but not at the expense of your own well-being. There is a balance, and that balance is where dignity lies. Sometimes people struggle with this because they fear disappointing others. They feel that by saying no, they might lose relationships or be seen as rude. But the truth is, when you respectfully protect your time, people may initially be surprised, but they will eventually respect you more. Because deep down, everyone understands the value of someone who knows their priorities. Think about it. When you delay your prayers, when you procrastinate on your responsibilities, when you spend hours in things that bring no benefit, what message are you sending to yourself? You are telling yourself that your time is not important. And if you do not value it, how can you expect others to? On the other hand, when you start organizing your day around what truly matters, when you protect moments of worship, moments of growth, and even moments of rest, you begin to carry yourself differently. There is a quiet confidence in someone who knows where their time is going. People notice it. They may not say it, but they feel it. Guarding your time is also about knowing that not every invitation deserves acceptance, not every conversation deserves your energy, and not every distraction deserves your attention. Life becomes lighter when you realize that you are allowed to choose. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say, I cannot do this right now without guilt. And when you live like this, something beautiful happens. You no longer feel controlled by others' demands. Instead, you feel grounded. You feel focused. You feel at peace because your time is aligned with your purpose. So be careful with your time, treat it with respect, and others will learn to do the same. Not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. The way you speak is a powerful reflection of how you see yourself, and it quietly teaches others how they should treat you. Words are not just sounds, they carry weight, meaning, and emotion. A person who speaks with calmness, respect, and dignity sends a message without even trying. I value myself and I expect to be treated with the same respect. Many people underestimate this. They think respect is demanded through force, loudness, or dominance. But in reality, the more tahakkam you have over your tongue, the more kawata you carry in your presence. The more kawata you carry in your presence. When you raise your voice, lose control, or speak harshly, you may feel powerful in the moment, but you are actually giving away your dignity piece by piece. People might respond out of fear or discomfort, but deep down, they do not truly respect that behavior. On the other hand, when you choose your words carefully, when you respond instant, add of reacting when your tone remains steady, even in difficult situations, you elevate yourself, you show emotional strength, you show maturity, and most importantly, you show that your worth is not dependent on the situation or the behavior of others. There is something deeply powerful about a person who remains composed when tested. When someone speaks to you harshly and you respond with calmness, you are not being weak, you are showing control, and control is strength. It is easy to shout, it is easy to insult, but it is not easy to remain dignified when emotions are high. That requires discipline, awareness, and a strong sense of self. Your speech also reflects what is in your heart. If your words are constantly negative, sarcastic, or hurtful, it creates a certain image of you in the minds of others. People begin to associate you with discomfort. They may tolerate you, but they will not feel safe around you. And when people do not feel safe, they do not open up, they do not trust, and they do not truly respect. But when your words are thoughtful, kind, and measured, even when correcting someone, even when disagreeing, you create an environment of a hektaram. People feel valued in your presence. And when people feel valued, they naturally value you in return. This does not mean you become silent or passive. It does not mean you never speak up for yourself. In fact, speaking up is important. But there is a difference between speaking up with dignity and speaking out of anger. One builds your image, the other damages it. One earns respect, the other pushes it away. Sometimes the strongest message you can send is not what you say, but how you say it. A simple sentence delivered with calmness can carry more weight than a long speech filled with emotion and aggression. People may forget your exact words, but they will always remember how you made them feel. It is so important to remember that il kalama can never be taken back once it is spoken. A single harsh word can damage a relationship, break trust, or leave a lasting scar. And often it is said in a moment of anger that lasts only seconds, but its other can last for years. That is why being mindful of your speech is not just about others, it is also about protecting yourself from regret. When you train yourself to pause before speaking, to think before responding, you begin to take control of your interactions. You no longer become a slave to your emotions. You no longer become a slave to your emotions. Instead, you become someone who chooses their words with purpose. Over time, people begin to notice this. They see that you are not easily shaken. They see that you carry yourself with grace. And Without you ever saying it, they understand that you are not someone to be spoken to carelessly. So refine your speech. Let your words reflect your iman, your character, and your self respect. Because in every conversation, you are either raising your worth or lowering it. And most of the time, it is happening quietly through the way you speak. Setting boundaries is one of the most misunderstood aspects of character. Many people think that being kind means always being available, always agreeing, and always putting others before themselves. But over time, this way of living does not lead to peace. It leads to exhaustion. It leads to feeling taken for granted. And slowly, without realizing it, you teach people that your needs come last. There is a difference between kindness and dafe. There is a difference between kindness and dafe. Kindness is a strength rooted in sincerity. It is choosing to help, to give, and to support for the sake of Allah. But weakness is when you feel unable to say no, even when something is harming you, draining you, or pulling you away from your responsibilities. Islam does not teach you to destroy yourself or others. It teaches balance. It teaches then that you have rights over yourself just as others have rights over you. When you fail to set boundaries, you begin to lose control over your own life. Your time is no longer yours. Your energy is constantly being spent on things that may not even matter. You start saying yes to avoid awkwardness, to avoid disappointing others, or to avoid being misunderstood. But in doing so, you end up disappointing yourself. And that feeling builds up inside quietly, heavily, until it turns into frustration. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It is about defining what is acceptable and what is not. It is about teaching others how to treat you, not through lectures, but through consistent action. When you respectfully say, I cannot do this right now, you are not being rude, you are being honest. And honesty, when delivered with wisdom, is muhantram. Some people may not like it at first. They may be used to having constant access to you. They may expect you to always agree. And when you begin to change, they might question it. But that reaction is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that they are adjusting to a new standard, a healthier one. You must also understand that saying no does not make you a bad person. It does not reduce your generosity. In fact, it protects it. Because when you say yes to everything, your yes loses its value. But when you are selective, when you give your time and energy with intention, your yes becomes meaningful. It becomes something real, something appreciated. Boundaries also protect your relationship with Allah. When you allow people to take over your schedule, when you constantly delay your ibadat, your prayers, your responsibilities, you are sacrificing what truly matters for what is temporary. But when you set limits, you create space for what is essential. You ensure that your priorities remain in the right order. There's also a quiet dignity in someone who knows their limits. You do not need to explain yourself excessively. You do not need to explain yourself excessively. You do not need to justify every decision. A simple, respectful response is enough. Over explaining often comes from guilt, and guilt often comes from not fully believing that you have the right to choose. But you do have that right. At the same time, boundaries should always be set with wisdom and good character. It is not about becoming harsh, cold, or distant. It is about being firm but kind, clear but respectful. You can decline something and still smile. You can say no and still maintain a good relationship. And when you live like this, something shifts within you. You feel lighter. You feel more in control. You feel more aligned with your purpose because your life is no longer being shaped by pressure, but by intention. People will begin to notice this change. They will see that you are not easily pushed, not easily overwhelmed. And without you ever announcing it, they will understand that your time, your energy, and your presence carry value. So do not be afraid to set boundaries. Do it with sincerity, do it with balance, and do it knowing that you are not just protecting your time, you are protecting your dignity. Consistency in character is something that cannot be faked for long. A person may pretend for a short time, may put on a good image in front of others, may speak beautifully and act impressively when NASA are watching, but eventually the hakaikak comes out. And when it does, it either strengthens your worth in the eyes of NASA or quietly weakens it. Who you are when no one is watching matters more than who you are when everyone is watching. Because your private self is your real self. When you are alone, when there is no audience, no praise, no recognition, what choices do you make? That is where your character is built. That is where your sincerity is tested. And that is what eventually shapes how others perceive you, even if they cannot see those private moments directly. There is something powerful about a person who is consistent. The one who is honest in private and honest in public. The one who avoids wrong, not because of fear of Nasa, but because of awareness of Allah. This kind of person carries a quiet strength. You may not always notice it immediately, but over time it becomes weird, odd. People begin to trust them. They feel safe with them. They know that what they see is what they get. On the other hand, inconsistency creates doubt. When someone behaves one way in front of certain people and completely differently in another setting, it sends a message. Even if no one says it out loud, they feel it. Trust begins to weaken, respect begins to fade, because deep down, people value authenticity. They value someone who is real, someone who does not shift their values based on the situation. This does not mean you will never make mistakes. Every human being slips. Every one of us has moments of weakness. But consistency is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about striving to be the same person with the same values, even when it is difficult. It is about catching yourself when you fall and returning to what is right. Your relationship with Allah plays a central role in this. When you are conscious that He sees you at all times, your actions begin to align. You no longer need an audience to do khair. You no longer need validation to do khair. You no longer need validation to stay away from wrong. Your muaya becomes tabit. And that stability reflects in your character. Consistency also shows in small things. The way you speak, the way you treat people, the promises you keep, the ahtaram you show. These are not one-time actions. They are repeated behaviors. And it is through repetition that people form their judgment of you. A single good act may impress, but consistent good character earns lasting respect. Sometimes people try to maintain appearances for the sake of reputation. They focus on being seen as good rather than being good. But this approach is exhausting and it eventually breaks because maintaining an image without a foundation requires constant effort. But when your character is genuine, when it is rooted in sincerity, it flows naturally. You do not have to pretend. You simply are. And when you are consistent, you create reliability. People know where you stand. They know what to expect from you. There is no confusion, no guessing, no uncertainty. And that clarity is valuable. It builds strong relationships. It builds trust. And it builds respect that does not easily fade. It is also important to remember that Allah loves consistency even in small deeds. A little that is done regularly is better than a lot that is done once and then abandoned. This principle applies not only to abidat, but to your overall character. Small, consistent acts of honesty, kindness, and integrity shape you into someone of worth. Over time, consistency becomes your identity. It becomes the silent message you send to the world without speaking, without demanding anything. You show people that you are steady, dependable, and sincere. So focus on being real. Focus on aligning your private and public self, because when they become one, your worth is no longer something you need to prove. It becomes something that is clearly seen. How you respond to disrespect says more about you than the disrespect itself says more about you than the disrespect itself. Anyone can react, anyone can raise their voice, defend themselves aggressively, or try to win in the moment. But not everyone knows how to carry dignity when they are hurt, when they are provoked, or when they are treated unfairly. And it is in these very moments that your true worth quietly becomes visible. There is a natural desire within all of us to defend ourselves. When someone speaks harshly, ignores our value, or crosses a line, the qalb feels it immediately. The urge to respond comes quickly. But Islam teaches us something deeper than reaction. It teaches us control. It teaches us that strength is not found in al-rid al-react, but in the wise response. Not every situation deserves your words. Not every comment deserves your attention, and not every person deserves access to your emotions. When you respond to every society thing, when you allow every negative word to pull you in, you slowly lower yourself into a space that does not reflect your dignity. You give importance to things that do not deserve it. There is a quiet power in restraint. Not when you choose silence over argument, when you choose to step back instead of stepping into conflict. You are not losing, you are rising. Silence, in many cases, is not emptiness, it is a statement. Emptiness, it is a statement. It says, I value myself too much to engage in what will bring me down. Walking away is also a form of response. Sometimes people think that leaving a conversation or distancing yourself means you are weak or unable to defend yourself, but in reality, it often means the opposite. It means you understand your worth. It means you recognize that your peace is more valuable than proving a point. Of course, this does not mean you allow injustice or zalim to continue without addressing it. Islam teaches us to stand for what is right. But even then, there is a difference between addressing an issue with wisdom and being consumed by anger. You can speak up without losing your composure. You can correct someone without humiliating them. You can defend yourself without becoming harsh. When you respond with anger, you may feel relief for a moment. You may feel like you have protected yourself, but often it leads to regret. Words are said that cannot be taken back. Lines are crossed that damage relationships. And in the end, you may find that you have lowered yourself to the same level you're trying to rise above. But when you respond with patience, with calmness, or even with silence, you protect your dignity. You remain in control. And that control sends a powerful message. People begin to see that you are not easily shaken. They realize that you are not someone who can be pulled into unnecessary drama. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. When you choose to overlook, when you choose to forgive, when you choose to walk away for the sake of Allah, you are not losing anything. You are gaining reward. You are elevating your status in a way that no argument could ever achieve. Over time, this behavior shapes how others treat you. People become more careful with their words around you. Not because you demanded it, but because you demanded it disrespect. They understand that you will not entertain disrespect. They understand that if they cross a line, they will not jibe. It's the reaction they expect, and that in itself is powerful. At the same time, this approach brings peace to your own heart. You are no longer carrying the weight of every negative interaction. You are no longer replaying conversations, thinking of what you should have said. Instead, you feel settled, you feel grounded, because you chose the path of dignity over the path of reaction. So remember, your response is always your choice. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how you carry yourself. And in that choice lies your strength. When you refuse to engage in what lowers you, you rise quietly, gracefully, and powerfully. The people you choose to keep around you have a powerful influence on how you see yourself and how others come to see you. Human beings are deeply affected by their environment, and one of the most important parts of that environment is companionship. Without even realizing it, you begin to adopt the attitudes, habits, and standards of those you spend the most time with. This is why your circle is not just a social choice, it is a reflection of your self-worth. When you allow people into your life who constantly belittle you, ignore your value, or treat you as insignificant, you are quietly accepting that standard. You may not say it out loud, but your istamara in their company sends a message that this is what you are willing to tolerate. Over time, this affects you internally. Your confidence weakens, your sense of worth becomes unclear, and you may even start believing the makdud image they project onto you. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with people who respect you, who remind you of al khair, who encourage you to grow, something different happens. You begin to rise, not because they praise you constantly, but because they bring out the best in you. They correct you with sincerity. They support you with honesty. They support you with honesty. And they stand with you in a way that strengthens your character. Good company is not about being with people who always agree with you. It is about being with people who genuinely care about your akira as much as your dunya. Those who remind you to pray when you forget, those who advise you when you slip, those who celebrate your growth, not your grora. This kind of companionship is a blessing, and it should never be taken lightly. At the same time, choosing better company sometimes requires difficult decisions. It may mean distancing yourself from people you have known for a long time. It may mean stepping away from environments that feel familiar but are harmful. And this is not easy. There is emotional attachment, there is history, there are memories. But not every connection is meant to continue if it is pulling you away from who you are meant to be. Letting go does not always mean cutting people off harshly. Sometimes it simply means creating space, reducing interaction, being present less often, protecting your energy without creating unnecessary conflict. You can still wish people well, still make dua for them, but choose not to place yourself in situations where your worth is diminished. It is also important to reflect on what you bring into the lives of others. Just as you seek good company, you should strive to be good company. Be someone who uplifts, who speaks with sincerity, who encourages al khair. Because the same way others influence you, you influence them. And part of knowing your worth is ensuring that your presence adds value wherever you go. People observe your circle more than you realize. They notice who you spend time with, how those people behave, and how you interact with them. And from this, they form an understanding of your standards. If your environment is filled with negativity, disrespect, or carelessness, it affects how others perk, eye view. But when your circle reflects positivity, growth, and sincerity, it strengthens your image without you needing to say a word. There is also a sense of peace that comes with the right company. You feel comfortable being yourself. You do not feel judged, pressured, or drained. Instead, you feel supported. You feel understood. And that peace is a sign that you are in the right place. Choosing who you keep around you is, in reality, choosing the direction of your life. It shapes your mindset, your habits, and your mustaqabal. So be mindful, be intentional. Do not settle for companionship that lowers you when you were created to rise. When you choose your circle wisely, you are not just protecting your environment, you are quietly teaching the world that your worth is not negotiable. As we come to the end, my dear brothers and sisters, reflect on this. Your worth is not something you announce with your tongue, it is something you demonstrate with your